Three, two, one. We're going live. What's up, everybody? It is Tyler with Hook Sets Are Free. Tonight is Thursday, July 13th, 9:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So, late night as usual. And I have to apologize because I had thought to do this stream tonight before Debo and Rich of Hellabass decided to have the exact same conversation already tonight. So it might be a little redundant to some of the folks that are in here tonight. But as you would suspect, everybody's got their own personal preferences and opinions on different things. So there is going to be a little bit of variety in the way of how I go through everything and what I have to say and spend my time talking about. So, Frank in the house. What's up, Frank? Looks like you might be the only one in the house right this minute. I think Rich is still on at the moment, but I think they're wrapping up. So we'll see who else maybe shows up. Also, it's possible that I'm not quite seeing the number change on my end because I do see Daniel's in here and Tom is in here. So what's up, gentlemen? How are you doing tonight? I am going to crack open a fresh bottle of Buffalo Trace. To those of you who do drink bourbon, you probably know that this is an allocated bourbon these days. Has become very hard to find, even though it's not an expensive bourbon. And so I did find a bottle of it at the liquor store like a week or two ago, and it was like for standard retail price. So decided to pick up a bottle, and I am running low on a couple of the other ones that I've got at the moment. So I just decided to crack this puppy open because it is a tried and true, really good bourbon. So Buffalo Trace, down the hatch. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, Daniel, I did miss having your Mad Link skills last time. Would have been useful, but quite all right, dude. I don't actually need those skills tonight, and I was trying to figure out how to give you permission to edit stuff and be more than just a quote unquote moderator. I think I've got you and Matt listed as moderators, but I just need to get your email address so that I can input you into my settings to be able to do a little bit more for me. So, yeah, we can talk about that afterward. But let's do a quick little catch up. Well, I suppose we could catch up later, but as is typical, we'll talk about my recent fishing right now. And just what's happened in the last week or so since I was last on. I was up in the mountains last weekend, little family vacation up in the mountains with a couple of friends of ours. So I did a little bit of fly fishing, ended up catching a couple of trout on this little baby lunker hunt TPE spider lure. That was pretty rad. They were wolfing it. And then this was a pretty big creek fish. I think the biggest that I've caught out of that creek, if we're being honest, because most of the fish, and that dude ate more of a traditional fly. That was a soft hackle, but I was throwing a rig with like 3 or 4 different flies on it. Most of the fish that I catch are more like this size out of that creek, just little like 6 to 8 inches. So had a number of fish end up eating the mule fishing. What is it called? The donkey tail, and then caught a bigger brook trout also on that Oh no, this was the horsefly by Meal Fishing. Um, so was able to get out like twice while up in the mountains and catch some trout. I know I rarely show you anything family related, but here's a picture of my three beautiful children. And then I've been able to get out twice this week so far and caught my first fish on that new swim bait that I recently picked up. This dude right here, the Jackal Swing Mikey, and pretty decent, maybe about a 3 pounder. It was fun to actually see that fish eat it, and to start to get a feel for how the bait operates. It's a very cool bait, actually, um, and it's a lot like if you were to look up the bait on YouTube and see kind of how it's designed and meant to be fished. There are a number of things you can do with it, but it's surprisingly effective when fished slow. So you can dead stick that thing, and if there's any bit of current or wind, that tail will just slowly wag. And with the smallest twitches on semi slack line, that bait will just walk back and forth. And then if you super slow reel it, it will just have this smooth wake bait type of action on the surface before then you start to speed it up, and it will swim a little faster waking, and on a medium speed retrieve it will dive subsurface anywhere from the top of the column down to maybe 2 foot. And really love the action of it. So far so good. I did get hit on it today, but did not hook up with that fish. But just caught that one the other day, and then followed that up by catching one on the OSP Doe Live Beaver, which was a one fish only type of bait. We'll talk about that bait later because everybody knows that the new Rapala Bronco bug is very similar to it. But then I caught a couple fish on this little micro jig that I made. So you guys had seen me tie up some of these, I don't know, a couple months ago on just some teeny tiny jig heads, and was using that mule fishing horse fly. Caught a handful of fish on it, including this absolute monster of a catfish. I don't know if this is a blue cat or a channel or what, but I will tell you, this was an insane ride that this fish took me on. Because this was probably I don't know, 6 to 10 pound fish. I couldn't quite guess. But it was on my BFS setup. So no joke, there were 2 catfish, I think they're spawning, that were swimming together on the surface of the water. And after I caught the bass on this micro jig, I decided to throw in the direction of these catfish, and not but 3 seconds after it hit the water, bobber down, and I set on that catfish, and it took me, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes to land the fish. I was definitely nervous about the line breaking because I've got super light line, either 5 or 10 pound braid to a 4 pound fluorocarbon leader. And this fish was definitely bigger than that. So it was a fun little ride. I'll say that. And yeah, and I ended up catching another bass on that bait. And I think that was it for that day, a couple days ago. So like 5 or 6 fish in 2 hours. And then yesterday, went out and tried to finesse them a little bit. Ended up catching 2 fish on The old Zoom swamp crawler, just Texas rigged, weightless, and that did the trick for me. So pretty cool deal. That was at a different body of water that's much closer to home for me, and I was just trying to sneak away for an hour. So um, I've gotten bit a handful of times. Caught about 20 fish or so in the last week, so that always feels good. But yeah, it's been a slow year for me so far. Who else is in the house right now? I saw Jermaine showed up. Good evening, sir. Thirsty Thursday. Yep. Drinking a little Buffalo Trace tonight. So cheers. It is significantly smoother than most of the high heat stuff that I tend to drink, but it's really well balanced. It definitely drinks more aggressively than it ought to, being just a 90 proof bourbon. And there's a reason for its popularity. So it's one that I probably only drink a handful of times per year, but is a staple and one that really everybody should have if they can get their hands on it. 90% sure that was a channel cat. All right, fair enough. Yeah, it was just so dark in color that it was hard for me to tell. I figured it was dark because it's perhaps their spawning season, or maybe just that pond in particular, but it was crazy. It was almost like not two-toned. It was like just a straight black catfish. So kind of crazy. Brock, that's funny. It's not the first time that Rapple has gotten into the plastics game, but you're right. In theory, uh, it is wild that they have not been in the game for a while. They used to have their plastics branded under a different company name, I believe, or maybe it was just it seemed like it. It was called Trigger X, and they did not do all that well. But that was some 10 years ago or more, and so it will be interesting to see how those baits are. I'm gonna pull up the uh, the deal in a couple of minutes, and we'll go through some of that in rapid succession. I was hoping that I would be the only one streaming tonight to be able to go through some of this and it feel somewhat fresh to you guys, but unfortunately, both Debo and Hellabass have already been live talking about this stuff tonight. So whatever. As I said, 1 minute into the stream, though, I will likely have my own opinions about some of the stuff, and I'll be interested in some of the things that perhaps they were not, and might have a slightly different take on some of the things. You know, I know that um, Brian from Punch Fishing was more likely to have a hot take, if you will, on a lot of the baits being knockoffs. And to a large extent, part of me agrees, but we are going to talk about that. You know, we could talk about the concept of knockoffs a lot because, quite frankly, uh, it is controversial, and I think it's annoying that iCAST the awards tend to go to either novelty or um, already existing concepts and then branded as like game changers, right? When really it's not that. They're either going to be total duds or there are already existing profiles and concepts that are somehow being presented as new to the market when they're not. So, you know, Brock, I do wonder, but I don't necessarily agree that it will drive prices down for soft plastics. You know, we've seen inflation bring the prices up by some 10 or 20% over the last handful of years overall. But yeah, we'll see. TD1 Steve, how you doing tonight, man? Good to see you in here. Thank you for contributing in the chat. And Frank, No problem. I will let her rip. All right. Daniel says if someone can KO a bait and sell it for a quarter of the price and it worked just as good, that's a win for us as consumers. I agree. That's not the case with the soft plastics, except for the Nessie. I wouldn't necessarily put it in that category as a soft plastic, but that is definitely going to be one that we talk about. So let's go ahead to the award winners first, I suppose. If I don't even know if I have it pulled up, so I'm going to need to do that real quick. All right, so best of show winners. Let's pull this puppy up. And I'm gonna make sure that I am placed down in the corner so you guys can see as much as possible. Okay. Yeah, Daniel, that's we will talk about that. So we're pretty much only going to talk about baits tonight. We're going to fly past all of the boating accessories and all of that stuff. We'll talk about terminal tackle some, but not going to talk a ton about rods and reels either. And I know that Brian from Punch Fishing, he seems to be more interested in rods and reels than he is in baits. So that's one way that this will be a little bit different. Is that this is going to be bait focused. So we don't need to sit here and dog on the Mojo Bass Trigon for a long time like they did. I only saw a limited amount of Hellabass's stream. I did not get to catch any of Debo's. I was at the pool with my family earlier tonight, and then we had dinner and bedtime, a little bit of time with the wife before hopping on here. So this is fresh for me because I haven't really flown through all of this stuff other than seeing that it was posted earlier today. So not really a surprise that the best freshwater soft lure went to Berkeley because they've won it a lot when Live Target hasn't. And we've been hearing a bit about this bait for the last month or so. And as Daniel just said, this is a direct knockoff, if you will, of the Grow Design Works Flag 170. Okay. Let me see if I can get rid of this deal down here. I don't know why there's an advertisement running, but so the Grow Design Works Flag 170, you can see it on Tackle Warehouse. I believe it retails for like $45 or $50 for that standard size, whereas the same size in the Nessie, which I think is probably their middle size, they're making it in like a 6, 8, and a 9 or something like that. It's going to be closer to $10. I want to say it's like $8, $10, and $12 are the prices that the Berkeley Nessie is going to retail for. So, as Daniel said, you're absolutely right that it is going to be much more affordable, and that is a big draw to why the Nessie might be appealing. What is with all these ads popping up, dude? I don't need all this business. I'm not asking for it. Why is that happening? Please stop. Look, there's another one. What is happening? Can I just zoom in and like kind of get rid of that? There we go. That should work for now. The Flag 170 retails for $45, $45.95, which is what I said. So $46, and I think the one from Berkeley is going to retail for $10. So in comparison, that is a much better deal. And there's just a couple of features that are different, right? The tail is a paintbrush style rigid tail, and the harness system includes this hook clip that will allow the hook to stay in a little bit better until you actually set the hook when it will come out. So it does have a cavity inside, um, underneath the bait right here. And that is the only thing that the Grow Design Works has, is a little slot for you to put the hook. It does not have this clip underneath right here. And the tail is a molded in piece of soft plastic. So those are the two main things that are different about them. But there is a piece of mesh in the joint to add some durability. But pretty cool deal. You know, it. Someone made a point the other day, which I thought was interesting, that everyone's given Berkeley a really hard time for knocking this bait off, but in reality, the same knockoff nonsense happens in the JDM market already. And Megabass is releasing the same exact thing. I think they're calling it the Hasu Raver or something of the sort, which is essentially the same concept, but Megabass is making it, and they're not getting any hate for putting that out. So I don't know what to say about that. But Trevor just came over from Hellabass. Appreciate you, dude. Wow, 41 people in here already. So we just jumped up. I guess everybody just popped right over. You guys missed the update on my fishing adventures from the last week, including a big old catfish that I caught on a BFS setup, which was wild. Bunch of mountain creek trout that I caught last week, and fun little family photo. Also, I just became an uncle for the second time yesterday. My sister just had a baby boy yesterday, so super exciting news there. But yeah, how about this little meow meow on a micro jig? Did not expect to catch big old catfish and it take me for a ride on a tiny little bait, but that was super fun. So yeah, you guys also missed me cheersing to all of you guys with a little Buffalo Trace. If you have some bourbon at home, if you like to drink bourbon, join me. I cracked the bottle open new tonight. It is a go-to bourbon for me, but not one that I drink all that frequently because it's allocated and harder to find, and because it's a little bit lower proof than what I typically drink. You don't see me drinking it all that often, but I did stumble into a bottle last week, and because it was not marked up, I couldn't help but pick one up while I was at it in buying a different bourbon that was a little bit higher end for the 4th of July. So, Rich, what's up, dude? Thank you for helping redirect or at least encourage people to jump over here. But yeah, we are going to talk a lot about the same stuff, but probably with a little bit of different perspective tonight. And we're really just talking about baits. So unlike Punch, we're not going to talk about rods and reels. You guys know that's not really my my specialty, nor am I a Shimano fanboy. I like to throw Shimano. I do have a handful of their reels, but it's just not a big passion of mine, right? All right, here comes Matt with his JDM knowledge. The action is subpar. I don't think it's really worth getting surprised. They didn't recall it to get better swim out of it. So, what are you talking about? The Colshad, or are you talking about the Nessie? Yeah, see, Daniel, I think that's probably the case, even for the people that are in the know about the flag. It's such an expensive bait for what it is that it's kind of hard to justify that $46 price point when Berkeley's coming in at $10. Now, $12 for the 9-inch. That seems like it's worth giving a go, just like the mag draft, right? If there's a time and place where that presentation might make more sense than throwing a traditional glide bait, if you need something more subtle, then it's worth probably dropping the dime on trying one or two of them. So I think we'll all be suckers about it. You know, in theory, it's not all that different than the Gilly, although so far I have only bought a couple of packs of Gillies and have not really put much time into them. So I think Berkeley knows that we're all a bunch of suckers, and that they can win awards and sell baits by doing what they're doing. But that said, my take is that knockoffs happen left and right in the US and in Japan. And so JDM companies knock off other JDM companies as well as American companies and vice versa, right? We knock each other off, and we also have more recently been knocking off JDM companies. And for whatever reason, I think it's just the JDM snobs and the people who, most of us, we hold JDM products to a higher standard. We assume that they are better quality and therefore inherently should have patents or something of the sort when really they don't. So it's no surprise that American companies are starting to make the same types of baits, at least with similar actions, right? I mean, Thunderhawk making the grenade that is the same exact thing as the Bellows Gill, right? I mean, that didn't get quite as much hate, but it happens all the dang time. So no problem if you can't take any more iCAST, you know, all good, no problem. No offense, none taken. So no big deal. Matt, you can't take any more. Well, we'll fly through it. All right. I just need to catch up on comments and greet you guys. Tim Maynard, what's up, dude? Lucas Flint, what's up? Happy that you guys got the link shared with you. So the gang did just pull up, you know. You're right, man. Knockoffs are in every field. It's a thing. Uncle Tyler in the house. The baby was even named after me in a way. My middle name is James. This baby's name is James Robert. And yeah, pretty cool. So feels special, and it's fun to have my first nephew, right? I've got one niece and now one nephew. So my brother has an 8-year-old daughter, and now my sister has her first child, which is a 1-day-old son. Beautiful, healthy boy. He was delivered full term and was delivered naturally. So pretty cool. Proud of my sister. Rolling in deep from the Hella stream. Yeah. Well, yeah, Punch is a gem. I'll give him that. But he rants about what he rants about. Don't we all, right? It's just, that's why I'm saying this might be a little bit different, because we're not even going to talk about rods and reels tonight. We're just talking about baits. And, you know, I'm interested in some stuff that Rich is not. I like some smaller baits. So we'll talk about some of that. And like I said, I didn't have the opportunity to watch either Debo or Rich's streams because I was just short on time. I stopped in for like a couple minutes of Rich's stream, and then at the very end, but was at the pool with my family when Debo was streaming, and then got home and had to clean up and put the kids to bed and stuff like that while Rich was on. Spent a little bit of time with my wife, and then decided that I was going to go live. So jumped in and let you guys know that. So appreciate you guys hopping over and being down to talk about baits. We've all got the bug, right? So let's jump back into it. We can move on from the Nessie. You know, I think it's whatever that they won that. Mike Iaconelli is a good spokesperson. Let's just say that. And we don't need to spend a ton of time on the Evo chatterbait, but this is my take on it, okay? This is not the jackhammer killer. I really appreciate that Wired to Fish did put out an underwater video, including sound of this bait last week. And we were able to get a little bit of a preview of what it's like. And then we had our buddy Brendan from Brown Bait Company go to iCAST and had the opportunity to try this out on the water a couple of days ago and reported back to us with the exact same feedback as what I suspected would be the case. And he said that this bait starts up just as fast as the jackhammer, as you might suspect from the blade to head connection and the size of that tie right there and the hole in the blade. I'm not surprised. You know, you can see that the head shape looks a lot like the jackhammer. It's got a wire tied skirt. It's got, you know, the wire bait keeper. So it looks almost like it's as high of quality as the jackhammer. However, I'm sure that this hook is lower quality. The blade is a different material. The snap is probably not the same, and it's not a JDM product, so they're able to cut corners by not licensing it through Evergreen and paying that. So in a sense, yeah, they're trying to go around Evergreen and come out with a comparable product that's probably more like the Thunder Cricket from a price standpoint. But also, if you were to watch that video and see the action of the bait and hear it underwater, it is not nearly as loud and deep of a pitch as the jackhammer is. It sounds a little bit more like a Thunder Cricket. It's higher pitch, a little bit faster of a movement. So, you know, the jackhammer has been the deal for me for 3 or 4 years now. And surprisingly, I have not caught a fish on a jackhammer yet this year. So I just wonder if perhaps something like this might be enough of a change of pace for those who have fish that are conditioned to a jackhammer. And maybe it's just the weird season that it has been the case for me so far this year, with tons of rain and high water, that the fish just haven't been eating the same. Everything's been a little bit different. But anyway, that's my take on it. At $10 compared to $16, it seems like in some ways it's a better value chatterbait than the jackhammer, but I don't think it's going to be the same thing as a jackhammer. I don't think it's going to replace the jackhammer. It will probably just take over some of the sales of a jackhammer. I don't necessarily know if I agree with. I was in for a minute when Rich and Punch were talking about this. I think the chatterbait patent still has like another 10 years or so. So I don't think that it's necessarily to prepare themselves for when the patent runs out, and other companies getting into that game. But anyway, that's a different conversation altogether. So don't really want to talk about any of this other stuff, except I do think this is a cool product. The VMC swinging Ned jig. You can't see the inside, but you know, this is a pivoting Ned head with what looks like a Nico style hook on here. So should be pretty cool. You could rig this with a Ned bait or with a worm and like a shaky head, and it's going to give it freedom of movement and pretty cool action. So I'm surprised that hasn't already existed on the market, but definitely not mad about it. I'll say that much. So let me jump back out of here, remove this, and pull up the longer list. Okay. All right. So I see that some people have dropped out of here. No problem if you got to go. I understand that it's late, but we're going to roll through and talk about what looks most interesting to me in the list of baits. And it very well might be a little bit different than the conversation that you guys would have seen with Rich and Brian for the last couple of hours. And we'll try to make this somewhat swift. So, Biffle Ned, yeah, a little bit. Does look a little bit like a Biffle Ned. I wonder which Ned baits would go well on that. You know, there are more and more 3-inch baits that are on the market, like the baby Rage Bug. You know, Yamamoto just released the 3-inch Yama Craw. You know, earlier this year, I think it was the standard Yama Craw that they released. So should be pretty cool. No problem, Diggs. And yeah, thank you. Hit the thumbs up, guys. Appreciate y'all. All right, so let's pull it up and fly through what is new this year, what was released, baits for 2024. And I'm going to try and zoom this like I did before so that we don't see these ads, okay? All right. So, I will say the Berkeley Dime, and there was one from the Strike King Gravel Dog. To me, I don't fully understand. And if you were to watch some of the Tackle Warehouse footage of these baits, or of the presentation of them being talked about, the pros can't even really describe what the action is or why the bait was designed. So that's a little bit confusing to me. I don't think either company really needed to release these baits. So will it replace a bait and, swap in and this be a good seller and something else become worse off? Or will these just hit the market and fade out? I don't quite know. Doesn't make sense to me. I think this bait does have a weight transfer system. So that's the one thing that makes it a little bit different, if you will. Can we close this ad? Maybe not. Does have a weight transfer system. Okay. Other than that, that's about all that I saw in it. Already talked about the Nessie. Here's all of its features if you want to come back and look at it. But I guess the stabilizing fins are unique about it, right? You can't see in the picture, but here and here, there are hard plastic stabilizing fins that will keep this bait upright and allow it to have a slightly better action. So I think that makes it unique from the Flag 170, but I'm not totally sure about that. And while we're on the topic of it, here we go. The Bronco Bug from Rapala. This is perhaps one of the more controversial baits this year because it is a direct copy of this bait that I just caught fish on the other day, and it does have a very unique action, and that being in the OSP Doe Live Beaver, right? The fish that I caught was on the 4-inch, not this 3.5-inch, but what makes this bait special are these kickers and this joint, okay? So you can see that you end up getting this sort of dolphin kicking action out of the bait, especially as you swim it back. Now, this is known to be mostly a free rig bait, but I caught the fish after working the bait and then starting to swim it back to me. And it has such a wild dolphin kicking style action. I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah, that tail is just kicking behind it in a up and down sort of way. And there's nothing else on the market that does that until now, with Rapala just saying, you know what? That is unique. And why aren't there other baits on the market that do that? We ought to do that. So, yeah, a little bit of a knockoff, but also going to make it more accessible, right? The Doe Live Beaver is a bait that has sold really well over the last couple of years. Rapala just taking notes, noticing that a company like the Hookup Tackle, that was perhaps their number one selling soft plastic bait last year, maybe even for the last 2 years. So I'm not surprised that somebody is releasing a bait just like it. No surprise there. Brendan in the house. Just got back from dinner with Rudd. Awesome dude. Hanging out with Alex Rudd. Sweet, man. Good Good for you. Nice networking. Things have been good. I talked about that twice already. Went up to the mountains last weekend with the family and a couple of friends, and then have been working this week. Went to the pool with the family tonight, and just been catching up a little bit on iCAST stuff. So that's what we're talking about tonight. Yeah, Brendan, I hope you're not drinking. I know that Alex is not a drinker, but you keep acting responsible, dude. All right. So the Bronco bug, as I said, a little bit controversial because it is almost an exact replica. It is designed with those vertical appendages to have that same type of action. You'll see right here. Um, it features a dolphin-like swimming action, a Bronco buck kick when jigged. Yeah, whatever. Now, I will say the one thing that sets the Bronco bug apart from the competition, aka the one other bait that they're knocking off, is the body thickness. So this apparently is raised so that you can Texas rig it more effectively, but it's symmetrical so that you could rig it on both sides and get a little bit more durability out of it. I will say that is the one hiccup with the Doe Live Beaver is its durability. It's not great. So perhaps that's a plus with the Bronco bug, but it is a blatant knockoff and it's cheaper at $7 a pack instead of $10 a pack. So, yep, that's just Rapala doing what they in Berkeley do best. Okay. And try and halfway notice what you guys are doing in the comments so I'm just jumping back and forth. Brendan, the plastic felt really good in hand of that Bronco bug or what? Nice. I wonder if Brendan's going to start drinking the Kool-Aid now that he's gone to iCAST and he's just sold on everything that he saw. So next is the Freeloader. This is all from Rapala's new series called the Crush City. But the Freeloader is their chatterbait trailer mixed with a soft plastic jerk bait slash Damiki rig and style bait. So what you can't see here is that it's got flat sides and I think flat top or bottom. I don't quite know, but this is a multi-purpose style bait. So interesting. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to jump on it, but I think 4¼ inches long is like the perfect size to be a vibrating jig trailer, but it's not like we need a new one. So I'll probably skip it, but we'll see. Now here's a Ned bait that they're putting out, the BLT. This is made from an elastomer style plastic, so it is super stretchy. Which you guys know I'm a sucker for and will probably end up trying strictly because of that and its buoyancy. It does have a tapered body, so the tail is thinner than the head, which I like to see. And yeah, looks like a solid Ned bait. There's only a handful of Ned baits on the market that do have that elastomer style plastic. So good on them for jumping in while companies are starting to do that. Now here's Cleanup Craw. This is essentially just a rage bug and looks solid, but doesn't necessarily appeal to me. 3.5 inches long, so it's a little bit shorter than most. So probably meant to be a jig trailer more than anything, but certainly could be Texas rigged or something of the sort as a standalone bait. But it's got that same body as the Bronco bug, but with more of a rage bug type of kicker on it. And then lastly, another one that I'm not super jazzed about is the Mayor. This is their straight up. Kind of weird to me because Rapala and Storm are in the same overall family. So the fact that this looks so much like the Largo shad is kind of strange. Um, Now, I don't know. Let's just take a quick peek. Body shape wise, it's very comparable. Now, it's possible that the soft plastic is a slightly different material. And of course, the tail doesn't have this like customization option where you can either get more action or less by thinning it out, ripping that bottom portion off. But from a profile standpoint, it looks to be very similar. Just has that top fin and that tail fin, and I don't know what to say. They say the density of the plastic gives him what he wanted, but Wheeler was already a huge Largo shad guy before this, so I don't really understand why he needed to make a new soft plastic swim bait, but Rapala just said make 5 new profiles, and that's what he did. So these ads are killing me. I don't know if it's wired to fish or who's responsible for it, but it chaps my ass a little bit. All right. OG Tiny Deep, fine. I like the tiny. I don't necessarily need a tiny deep. That will appeal to some people. Ott himself said that it was really difficult to get the same action, and then doesn't necessarily have the same action as you would suspect because of where the line tie is, but really good bait nonetheless. So interesting. The gravel dog, I already kind of dogged on it a little bit. Todd Castledine tried to sell this by talking about just how complicated it was to create this bait. But essentially, it's just a 1.5 size square bill. So you take the body from a KVD 1.5 and you take the bill from a Series 4 crankbait and you combine them. And quite literally, that's what he did as the first go around, gluing it in. And it worked. And he was happy about it. And then they went through a couple more prototypes. And voila, here you go. He said it doesn't get hung up. It comes through wood better than you would expect for a bait that was designed to go through rock, like the rock crawler, which it's blatantly supposed to be. Strike King doesn't really have a rock crawler, and they've noticed that there is a rock crawler in addition to the wiggle wart, and there's a market for that. So why not jump into that? But doesn't really seem like it's necessary because Strike King already has so many existing crankbaits that perform well. So what? I don't really see the point, right? Wait. Is it made of TPE? I didn't see that. The mayor? No, dude. The mayor is not TPE. I'm pretty sure it's only the Ned bait that is TPE. The rest are a standard soft plastic. Okay. So no, it's just a new Largo shad made by Rapala instead of Storm. Um, so I don't quite understand that, right? But Gravel Dog, I'm not going to get it. J300 deep sinking jerkbait. We've seen a ton of this over the last couple of years in companies deciding to go with sinking jerkbaits, especially after Hank Cherry created the Berkeley Stunna. A bunch of companies have started to create sinking jerkbaits, even though it's not like the Berkeley Stunna was the first sinking jerkbait to come out, but there we are. And they've got new paint jobs that look pretty cool, but Nothing unique there. The Rage Hawk to me looks interesting. This is a, I think, 3.5 inch, 3.25 inch bait, and will apparently fit up to a 5/0 hook, which is wild to think about given the profile. So it looks like a Ned bait, right? 3.25 inches long. That is not substantial, but it'll take a 5/0 hook, which my guess would come out like right in between the eyes. But cool thing about that is that if you get short strikes, if you get nippers, they're getting the hook. So in a way, this is like their take on a poop bait. We've seen a bunch of knockoffs of the cover scat, including I think 2 more at iCAST this year. So I wonder how thick this body is that if you were to remove the kickers and just fish this as a Ned bait or just a poo style bait, what it would actually look like in the water. I don't know, but I'll probably check it out just to see what it's like so I can show you guys. But new Rage Tail bait. All right, so the Bitsy series of baits. This actually looks interesting to me. I'm sure some people thought not so interesting, but to me, someone who likes to fish smaller bodies of water, who likes to chase multi-species, and who's just getting more and more into fishing BFS, I'm actually in on the Bitsy series. So you guys need to tell me what you think about this. OG Tiny was not a win for you, but you were a fan of the slim, right? I think maybe just your fish prefer a slightly more aggressive or slightly larger profile, Daniel. But different baits perform better in different situations and different areas of the country. Also depends on how you use the bait, right? What? Ott said that the tiny deep was the best bait at the show. Well, it's his bait. How would he not say that, dude? I'm not at all surprised that he would say something like that, but um, I think the original OG Tiny is a great bait and one that I really didn't throw enough of this spring, but will definitely this fall. Yeah, Tim. I think we all probably need to mature a little bit when it comes to the whole concept of knockoffs and just understand that it's part of the game, right? Someone came up with the idea initially, sure, but did they pursue and get a patent on that in the way that like Z-Man has with the chatterbait? No. So it's going to blatantly happen everywhere, right? Not a ton of people, we didn't hear the same kind of chatter about people knocking off the Senko and people knocking off Kitech swim baits. And a bunch of other profiles um, have been knocked off time and time again. The Rage Craw or Rage Bug and Rage Craw, the entire Rage series, even though they've got a patent on the flange, people have found a way around it. And it's just the game that is fishing lures these days. So I think we all just need to get over that and not feel so butthurt. I'm sure that the companies that have the original design and have had their own chunk of the market and have had success selling their design are upset by it being knocked off, but I'm sure they're not surprised, right? Well, let's just be honest about that. No, dude, I'm pretty sure it's only the Ned bait. I could be wrong though. Oh, Daniel's definitely. I mean, I think Brendan has all of the Bitsy baits already. He's gonna throw them nonstop. He says, "Go big or go small." I'm pretty sure, not go home. Brendan loves small baits. So you're a flat side guy, but not the OG Tiny, huh? Interesting. Not a huge popper guy. Um, I'm not a huge popper guy. I just had a lot of success on poppers last year. There was a window of time for like a month where my fish were just chomping on poppers. So, whereas like 4 or 5 years ago, a whopper plopper was like I couldn't not throw it. Uh, it seems that every year there's like one or two baits for me that just murder my fish. And yeah, so it's been the Ned rig 1 or 2 years. Um, it's been the jackhammer for like 3 or 4 years. It was the whopper plopper for a few years. Um, it's been a popper for really last year and maybe the year before. Um, it's been the drop shot the last couple of years. A few baits in particular, the Strike King Baby Z2 and the Savage Gear Ned Salamander have been standouts on a drop shot for me. So, it seems that every year there's a couple of baits that work their way into my rotation and end up being killers, or just styles of lures and not necessarily one particular brand and model. But tubes are doing it for you this year. Sweet, dude. Um, I've never really had tubes like blow up for me, but I've had success on and off on tubes over the years. And I do throw them from time to time, but just not frequently enough. I'd be curious to know for the rest of you guys, like what has been your standout bait so far this year? Yeah, I did see them. And yes, the shad profile gilly and also the elastomer geek crack bellows shad. They're making that in an elastomer stretchy material. So, yep, I did see those. No, Matt, you're right. There are plenty of baits that aren't KOs, but we're just saying, I'm saying rather that KOs are the norm. You have to expect that companies are paying attention to what is innovative, what is doing well, um, what best sellers are, and where there's an opportunity in the market to take over a portion of sales, of something that is doing remarkably well and is unique. Now, is it okay for you to hate on that? Sure. But should you be surprised that it's happening? And should you be surprised if that new bait sells well? Because some people have allegiances to one brand over another, or want to save a little bit of money, or want to buy it if it's in stock. Um, yes, I mean, you should not be surprised about any of that, right? The DT special, talking about the Megabass Uoze swimmer. Yeah, no surprise there, dude. All right, back to it. The Bitsy series from Strike King. They've got the Splash, which is their popper, coming in a tiny little cute 1/16 ounce, a 1/8, and a 1/4, and a 3/8. Those are respective. So the Bitsy dog is 1/16. No, sorry, the Bitsy spinner, which is an inline spinner, is coming in all these sizes. So I don't know what weight the rest of them are, but the Bitsy series is going to feature a popper, which is the Splash, a red eye shad, so a micro-sized lipless crankbait, the Sexy Dog, which is a micro-sized topwater walking bait. Love that. A tiny little jerk bait, so kind of like the miniature X wraps, if you will. And then an inline spinner. So I am not mad about the fact that Strike King is actually coming out with this micro series of hard baits, especially their tried and trues. The inline spinner I find to be a little weird that Strike King's putting out an inline spinner, but whatever. That's fine. It used to just be the what is their square bill? The Bitsy minnow. So I'm not mad about the fact that they're coming out with a bitsy dog, a bitsy splash, a bitsy red eye shad, a bitsy jerkbait. That's cool. I'll probably try a couple of them. The dog, the splash, and the red eye shad for sure. I don't know about the jerkbait necessarily. We'll see. The spinner, probably not. I've got enough inline spinners. Uh, Mr. Crappie, little sucker. That looks like it already exists. If we're being honest, I don't feel anything when I see that. Probably not going to try it. Now, this dude, the sugar glider, could there be a time and place for this? Yeah, maybe. So those wings on the side, or wangs if you're a wally, dude, that's weird. Um, Now this, the maxi waxy, I'm not mad about, right? This is a concept that has started to become more of a thing over the last couple of years. And in this profile, it looks a lot like a mayfly, a bunch of other like flies. And I think that is a good idea, right? A dragonfly nymph. Um, that's a good bait. I will almost for sure try that at some point on a 164-ounce jig head under a cork. That sounds a lot like how I would fish it. Just like I was with the horsefly the other day when I caught that catfish and a handful of other bass. So, tiny little bait from Bill Lewis, the Gnat. This is a 1.5 inch, 1/8 ounce bait. 3-foot diving depth, tiny little square bill. Interesting. Haven't heard much about it, but I'll keep an eye on it. Now, like most things Bill Lewis, it will probably retail for $7 or $8, and that's like where I'm right on the edge about whether or not to justify that. Now, this looks like a rattle trap that's not a rattle trap, so they call it the hammer trap. It's got a crazy hammering action. 3 distinct tonal frequencies. There's not enough information here. Are they just using something that looks like a hybrid between a rattle trap and an LV500, but sounds like an LV500? I don't know. Is it brass and glass and tungsten? I mean, what are the distinct tonal frequencies? What's the deal with this bait, and why should we be interested? I don't know. Walleye bait. Now, the jigs I'm pretty much going to skip over unless I see something that really stands out to me. But sorry to Buckeye. This looks like a squadron head from Strike King with a double bait keeper. Double bait keeper on a buzz bait. Chop top, that looks like it would skip really well. And comes in some lighter sizes. 1/4 ounce. I'm not mad about that. Would I try it? Maybe, yeah. Stand up Ned head. Okay. Nico Craw. I've never been a huge fan of baits like this, but I know some people are. So to each their own. Dual Realis with a straight tail bait that goes on a darter head. I mean, okay. Not gonna do that. There's their darter head. 48 MR. That looks cool. Finder shad. That's not new. Uh Maybe the 3-inch is new. I don't know. I thought that bait already existed. Spin bait. I guess they're making in a shallow version, which actually kind of appeals to me because I fish shallower water, and I know that spy baits are generally meant to be middle of the water column to target suspended bass. And so I do wonder about this. This is supposed to be a little bit lighter weight and to be fished just some 50 centimeters subsurface. So, you know, couple feet under the water with that same super subtle action, I might actually give it a shot, where spy baiting has not been my thing. The T-Hog is also not new. Maybe it is to the US market, but I don't know. Don't need to talk about it. They say weightless, free rigged, weighted hook, nail rig, Texas, Carolina. Yeah, of course, you could rig it any way you want, but um, I don't know. Would I try it? Sure. Will I? Probably not. It's JDM prices doesn't necessarily jump out at me unless I were to see some underwater video footage of it that spoke to me. But the Versa pintail, 3-inch bait, I could see it doing well on a drop shot, but my guess is it's going to be a little bit too dead of action for what I like. Um, I think it's probably meant to be more on a ball head than anything. What does it say? Backslit design gives you 2 options for offset hooks. Yeah, not enough information, but $5 for a pack. That's a good deal. So who knows? I could see that being good on the back of like a tiny chatterbait. You guys know that I am a big fan of the Flashback Mini as well as the micro chatterbait, both of which are from Z-Man and are similarly sized, right? Here's the Flashback Mini, which I've tied my own skirt onto, but it comes in a 1/16 and a 1/8, and then they've also got the micro chatterbait. You can see with the same size blade, same size head as the 1/8 ounce, and it comes with a skirt already on it. So I like both of these baits, and I could see a 3-inch straight tail doing really well on that. You know, one of my favorite trailers on the back of the Flashback Mini is the 4-inch Streaks or the 3.75-inch Baby Z2. And I've had tons of success on it over the last handful of years. So I can imagine that a 3-inch straight tail would be a good option for that style presentation. Yeah, I wonder about the T-Hog though, dude. Yeah, G-Rat is has been pumping out new baits over the last couple of years. But what did you guys say about any of those previous things? You couldn't find the gravel dog? What do you mean? That's kind of interesting. No, Matt, we're going to get both. We will continue to get both, right? Innovation will continue, but at a slow pace. But imitation will ramp up more and more. And we need to not be surprised or butthurt about it. It's just companies trying to take advantage of a piece of the market where companies have something interesting, something innovative, and have like a little bit of a miniature monopoly on a corner of the market. There will always be companies that immediately jump out and try to copy it, right? I mean, before you know it, there's going to be a bunch of other companies that make this style jig head with a line through and a screw lock, right? But for now, Sixth Sense is the only company that has that. In a couple of years from now, there will be a bunch of companies that have that. Like, it's just the reality of the way that things go, right? If something comes out, is unique, and does well, there will be other companies that jump onto that bandwagon. What is that shad color, Brendan? Yeah, the Sharker, I feel mixed about. I think it's cool that it has some versatility to it, but we'll see. I agree, Hayden. Um, but what example are you using to say that someone is just doing it cheaper? Give me the example. The Gilly, perhaps, right? But the Nessie, they're doing a couple things, right? With the stabilizer fins and the tail and that hook clip. Um, I don't know if the Flag 170 has the mesh in the joint or not, but whatever. It's like Megabass isn't doing a whole lot to improve on that either. So, what do you mean by make it better, and which bait are you talking about if it's not the Nessie? It felt like a lipless to you? Yeah, there are a million lipless out there, so I don't know, dude. All right, let me catch up to you guys. How many who else makes a line through screw in jig head like this, dude? Line through being the deal. Not just a screw in jig head. I mean, we'll see one or two of those come up. They're a lot like the 6 Sense divine swim bait heads, right? That's not what I'm talking about. This treble head is a line through jig head. Okay. Who else makes them already? Now. So, yeah. And it's entirely possible that 6 Sense did knock somebody else off in creating it. But it's not mainstream. And you notice when they made them and started selling them, they sold out rapid fast. So far, so good on those. You can find it. That's all good. And I don't really care who came first. My point is just um, what is successful and does not have a lot of competition will develop more competition. That is the way that the market goes in any industry. Okay. The Versa Shad, in addition to the Versa Pintail, who just did the same thing. Um, Somebody just made a boot tail version of a straight tail bait that they already had. I forget. The Wriggle ND Slim, I showed you guys this bait just a week or two ago. I bought like 4 packs of them. In fact, I've got that exact same color right here. But yeah, like it. It's an elastomer style Ned bait, so can add that to the list of how many companies there are that make a Ned bait that are stretchy and float really well and have an interesting action. So will work well on a Ned as well as a drop shot, maybe even a Nico rig, free rig or Carolina rig, tiny Texas rig, all of the above. But okay, on we go. The Wriggle stick, also not new. Lunker Hunt copying the Slinko from Yamamoto. Is anybody mad about that, or does nobody care about Lunker Hunt? The Hive Seeker, that looks like a couple of baits mixed into one. Maybe one of Lunker Hunt's existing baits, as well as the Kitech Swing Impact. I don't know. Helger might copy some micro baits from Lunker Hunt. They actually make some good micro baits. Like that spider that I showed you. Sorry, Lunker Hunt, you're not going to get a lot of love. Not a ton of innovation there. Perfection Lures, David Dudley. Flippin' bait, Ned bait. Probably not made of TPE. Finesse worm. I mean, how much are those baits selling? Perfection Lures, like I don't know. Sure, they're in Dick's Sporting Goods and a few other places, but like I've never considered trying them. So the Shimano Arma joint, they're now making in a double jointed version and not just the glide bait. So this kind of reminds me of when Storm put out the Arashi glide and then the Arashi swim bait the next year. Shimano's just doing the same thing here. So adding a joint to it. The Swaggy Strong spinner baits. Swaggy. Now maybe this is not the Swaggy Strong. It's just a regular Swaggy. I don't know. I don't know what makes that different. Yamatanuki in a new size, the 2.5 instead of the 3.5. Could be thrown on a few different presentations that are different from the standard 3.5, which is supposed to be thrown weightless on an EWG style head like any other poo bait. But you could throw this on a Ned or on a drop shot, on a shaky head, but probably still supposed to be the same way. I already mentioned Yamamoto 3-inch Yamakra could be awesome on that BMC swinging rugby jig head. You know, Joe Cool, you're right about that. People seem to find stuff to be mad about. Haters gonna hate. You know what I'm saying? Taylor Swift is in Denver this weekend. The haters gonna hate. Gators Adventures. When Mr. Ned created this bait, what type of plastic did he use? He didn't create a Ned bait, but he used the Strike King Zero. So made of a Laztec, but it's got salt in it. And he would cut it in half. So this is a bait that I actually do throw in a couple of situations, more so as a weighted wacky rig type of bait. But this is it right here, the Strike King Zero. So it's different from what you get from Z-Man in the Zinkers. I forget they also make another stick bait, but you'll see that when it comes straight out of the package, that it is one color. And then as you stretch the bait out, that salt starts to come out of the bait and it starts to become a lot more limp and also buoyant. So check this out. As I stretch it out, it will actually, well, it's raining salt on me at the moment, but this bait will gain a little bit of length. So check that out. Look at the transformation of this bait as you stretch it out. It gains like, I don't know, half or 3/4 of an inch. Pretty substantial. It changes color. The salt comes out of it. So look, here's the original. And then here's after you stretch it out a little bit. So he would use this bait and just snip it in half. This is a 5-inch stick bait. And he would use a 2.5-inch Strike King Zero, which has some buoyancy to it, but doesn't stand up nearly like a Finesse TRD does. He helped design the Finesse TRD for Z-Man and wanted, I think, the durability as much, if not more, than the buoyancy. Uh, just because he would set a goal to catch 100 fish in a day on the Midwest Finesse rig, the Ned rig, um, just on an exposed jig. Dude fishes out of a float tube, and he catches tons of small fish. So that's his style of fishing. He wanted a more durable bait, and he found that in the Strike King Zero, and then helped design the Finesse TRD. Just wanted kind of a do nothing bait. Caught a lot of his fish, still does, on a drop. So make a short cast, let it fall, get eaten on the fall a majority of the time. But if not, then he would work the bait back in a few different style retrieves. You can look up all of that stuff, but very interesting stuff. So short version is, if you know, you know, to many companies, to name grab on someone else's idea, but leave out the magic ingredient that actually makes it catch fish, different, cheaper materials. I There's truth to that in some regard. Um, there are a lot of knockoffs that are not as effective as the originals. I will say that, but in a lot of situations, that's also not the case. So I feel a little bit mixed about that. Companies need to stick in their lane and do what they do best. Stop pumping out baits that are already out there. I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm saying I'm not surprised that this is happening, right? It's not new. Look at the Senko, look at Kitech, and see how many companies have their own soft plastic stick bait and soft plastic swim bait that are designed after those exact baits. It shouldn't be surprising that that's going to happen with nearly all other profiles, right? It happened with the trick worm. It happened with the finesse worm. It is happening with chatterbait trailers and Ned rig baits and everything else. So why are we so surprised that it's happening with everything? People just find stuff to be mad about. Yeah, you're right, Tim. The color line um, of the stunner was like they were just taking a bunch of colors straight from Megabass. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder why companies aren't using custom painters more. I think that's what Strike King just did for the gravel dog and some of their new baits, like the J300 Deep, is that they're actually having a custom painter come in and create the paint jobs. Um, I don't think they're painting all the baits, but creating the designs, which is smart, right? So 3-inch Yamacraw, 5-inch Fat Senko. The 3-inch Fat Senko in particular, but I think it also comes in a 4-inch, has been very productive. So I'm not surprised that there's a 5-inch Fat Senko, because the 5-inch Senko has been the number one seller forever. So no surprise. The Scope Shad. I'm kind of sick of everything being released that's like catered toward forward-facing sonar people, live scope, but I'm also not surprised because that's been kind of where the industry is headed and what people are doing. So that's a bandwagon that everyone's hopping on. But makes me think that Yamamoto and Buckeye are owned by the same parent company. Now, I'm slightly more interested now that I hear that it's this scope shad is made from their mega floater formula, which is the same formula as their Ned Senko, and a few of their other baits, which I'm not mad about. You know, it isn't a different formula that is a little bit less salt, but still super soft. And I'm interested. The Oki worm, I haven't really heard anything about this. This is the first time I've actually seen it. Um, Also mega floater. So this is a 10-inch worm. Maybe it's a shaky head style worm. Maybe it's a Nico rig worm, but it will stand up. Okay. The Ichi worm, mega floater. Look at them going with the mega floater. Say everyone's trying to get after Z-Man, right? They realize that floating baits are the deal. Maybe not just durability, but also floating. The stand-up presentation. Yozuri wake prop. This doesn't feel like a new deal to me. Um, Now it could be awesome, but at $12.99, I'm like, oh, if I could get it on sale for $9, I'd probably grab one and see what it's about. But just like all Yozuri, like it looks like it's high quality, but it also doesn't look like it's anything new necessarily. I don't know. Maybe that's insensitive. Z-Man Hellraiser downsized version. I have yet to actually throw my one of the two Hellraisers that I bought a couple months back. So, do I need a smaller one? No. The original Hellraiser looks pretty small as it is. So, I don't necessarily see a reason to go down in size on that. Looks like they did the same thing on the Hercules, downsized. It's a pre-rigged swim bait made from Elastec. I was tempted to buy one not that long ago. Didn't do so, but these come 2 to a pack for $10. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll try it. Scented jerk shads in a 3.5 inch, a downsized version. So this is going to be even smaller than the Baby Z2, but little bite-sized deal. There will be a time and place for it, especially like I said, on the back of a dude like this. Little micro chatterbait. That could be the deal. Look at just downsized is the deal for Z-Man. A micro goat. So they released their micro series of baits last year, just like Strike King did this year. They were all soft plastic, unlike Strike King's hard baits this year. Because Strike King owns Mr. Crappie, so they don't really have a need to do that. They've already done that a little bit with the Baby Rage series, but not all the way down to these micros. So this is like a panfish sized presentation, but in the goat, which is cool. It's also got more ribbing. Well, I say more, but it's got ribbing, whereas the standard goats do not have ribbing on them. So that's cool. I very well might try that. Baby Ballers. I mean, it's just something they didn't have in the micro series last year, so not surprised they're adding to it. Micro shad heads. I mean, it looks a lot bigger than it actually is. I know it's small, but I'm sure that's not a bad jig head, especially perhaps to go on to pair up with this little dude, the Baby Ballers. I don't know. Comes with a size 4 hook or size 6 on the smallest, size 4 and size 2. All right. And then this dude, the Gremlin. You get a little mixture of multiple styles. Creature bait. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, it's essentially just a Reaction Innovations. Where did I put them? I took them with me the other day, I guess. But it looks exactly like the Reaction Innovations. What do they call that? It's not a beaver. Can someone help me before I find it? Can you figure it out before I do? It looks exactly like that bait. It's the man bear pig. Did anybody get it before me? You didn't. It looks just like the man bear pig. So, yeah, made of a Laztec, though, so good on you. Brian Latimer. Talked about the Elite Evo. This is going to be a good selling chatterbait, no doubt. Slight step up from the chatterbait Elite. Slight step down from the jackhammer. Bridges the gap nicely. $10. Chatter Spike. This is just an evolution. You know, they've had the razor shads for a number of years. They've realized that a pintail style chatterbait trailer instead of a baitfish profile is what a lot of people are going to. So they're doing that. I don't know if I'm going to jump on that right away. You know, it's kind of like a hybrid between a soft plastic jerk bait more than a subtle swim bait being thrown on the back of a chatterbait. Might be able to use it in a few different ways. I don't know, but it's a chatterbait trailer, and it's no surprise that they're releasing a new chatterbait trailer when they're releasing a new chatterbait. A lot like Berkeley and Strike King have done in the last couple of years. So Zoom Unitoad is not brand new. This has been out 6 months or so. I will say I did just throw it for the first time a week or two ago. I've thrown it a few times now. Have not gotten bit on it, but it does have a very good action and a lot of roll to it, actually, especially at faster retrieves. You do need to throw it on like a belly weighted swim bait hook if you're going to throw it by itself and not on the back of a buzz bait. So keep that in mind. It does want to roll over if thrown weightless. So yeah. Otherwise, thrown on like a beast hook, the thing has a lot of action. It wags back and forth. So pretty cool deal. The brush craw and baby brush craw, same deal as the Unitoad. Zoom released these baits earlier this year. I find this to just be a weird combination of two baits and probably not have enough action on it. So Carolina rig is where I see it working, but I probably not going to get it. Arc square bells, arc jigs. I mean, that's a 6 cents divine swim jig. Sleeper Craw's not new. That came out at the Classic. X Nanahan. Kanata +1. iSlide 187 art. Here's okay. Hasu Raver is a double jointed bait, not a single jointed bait, but they do have a single jointed bait coming out. Forget what it's called. The Gorham 147. I mean, that I don't even know what to think of these. BFS color editions. What does that mean? Their smallest baits are being made available in some unique colors. So, are any of these baits new? The Baby Pop X, is that new? I know the Dog X Junior Kawaii, the MRX Griffin, the SRX Griffin, X70, and X80 Junior are all existing already. Is the Baby Pop X new or no? Spro Sashimi Swimmer is new, but it's a knockoff. Sabile Magic Swimmer. I suppose maybe Spro came to realize that the Sabile bait has been more difficult to find and doesn't have a lot of competition. So they're jumping on that bandwagon, adding some Gamakatsu trebles onto it, trying to get some of the striper market. Walking bait from Spro, I don't get that. Megalojohn is essentially just a mag draft with more action. Same design, so can we hate on it? Yes and no. Uh, for reasons that we've all already mentioned, right? It's not creative, but it's a little bit different. It's got a softer plastic. It can be fished at slower speeds. It's got a deeper body. Um, it's just barely different, but it's the same type of bait. So are we going to be mad about it? I don't know. It's more expensive than the others, so that's kind of weird. Helix stick. Skip it. Craw nugget. This looks exactly like the cover scat with an eye on it, I guess. And it's more expensive. Like, Spro, what are you doing with your soft plastics? Come on, man. I don't get that. Oh, it's made in Japan. Don't do that. You're an American company. You can't just make your stuff in Japan and call yourself JDM. You're not. Makes me want to skip over the rest of Spro right now. Big Bite Baits with a 6 Sense Divine Swim Jig. And here I am talking, everyone's knocking each other off. There's a Senko made with Big Bite Baits' new Sensation plastic formula and scent built in. Sensation, giant tube, Magnum worm. No, this is the 6 Sense Divine Swim Bait head, but it's the Big Bite Baits real deal swim bait head. Big Bite Baits A-Rig jig head. This is the 6 Sense or the Strike King Squadron head to a T. It's the same exact thing. Jigs. Kind of like the look of that jig and the vertical line tie on it. Like the look of this spinner bait. Buzz baits. I'll say the one buzz bait that like really caught my eye, and I don't even know if I'm gonna jump in on any of these necessarily. I mean, this sneaky, is that plastic? Yeah. I think it was this one, the Bio Blade. This is a buzz bait where you can modify the blade to create different actions and sounds out of it. It's not just bending the wire to make it clacking versus not, but it's like you can turn this from a double to a quad just by clicking it in place. I'm probably misspeaking about that, but Bill Siementel did a little bit of a preview of this bait the other day on the first day of iCAST, and it looked very intriguing. I'll say that much. So the Fish Lab buzzbait caught my eye. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to try it. Now, take a close look at this trailer. We're going to see that in just a second, which is weird. The Mimic tail. That's weird to me. 2.5-inch tail made to be a trailer on a spinnerbait, I guess. Top water bait from Fish Lab. I don't know. Micro jig from Jewel Baits. Looks cool. Missile baits with a cover scat. A smooth cover scat. I mean, it's probably going to be more affordable than what you get from Spro, but kind of disappointing that John Cruz is responsible for 2 cover scat knockoffs in 1 year. Not to say that he's responsible for everything Spro does, but a little upsetting. Nishini with the extra deep diver and the baby Abino. I do have the standard Abino. I'm intrigued by the baby size. 1/4 ounce, little 3-inch bait. That could be sweet, especially in the fall. Rattle trap, Look at this wild looking deal. Just throw a standard ball head in the top portion of this bait. What in the world is that? The Janko Gill Bob? I don't know. Janko coming up with a walking bait, some underspin. Okay, Great Lakes Finesse. I think some of these baits have already been out. It's a great looking tube head if you throw tubes. Ball head. This clip for a drop shot weight is a good idea. This bait's not new, the drop minnow, but looks like a great drop shot bait. I've heard good things about it. Smallmouth Crush. Travis loves it. In fact, I think he helped design it. The Snack Craw, that's not new. Tiny little dude. The Flat Cat, also not new. Tiny little dude. Drop Worm. Looks like a good drop shot bait. I'll say that. All those baits have good neutral buoyancy. Snag Proof Zoo Pop? I thought that was made by somebody else. I don't know. Not interested. Freedom Tackle, Lunker Hunt, Freedom Tackle. Not going to get a lot of interest from me. The Evergreen Bow Worm Noodle looks a lot like some other really skinny worms out there on the market. Definitely not a new thing, right? Poor OSP getting knocked off left and right. Is that not the same thing? The Dolive Crawler Slim. Knockoffs. All right, guys, I am going to pee real quick. I'll be right back, and then we'll wrap this up in a minute. You guys chit-chat. I thought I might be able to get through this without having to pee. Still got 30 people in here. Hit that thumbs up button and talk to each other in the chat. Ya vengo. I'm here. Dare I say that this evergreen worm and that OSP worm are copies of the Zoom Swamp Crawler? I don't know. I showed you guys that I caught a couple fish on the Swamp Crawler, rigged weightless the other day, but these are Swamp Crawler worms, all right? Tim, what bait are you talking about? Talk to each other. Yeah, you guys need to talk to each other. Whatever. You guys have been doing that. That's all we ever do in other people's streams, right? Elizabeth, appreciate you contributing in the chat. We're almost done here. Live target. Don't need it. I mean, it's nice to have an exposed hook on top, but come on. That finished it, guys. What do you know? We just finished it. Should we scroll down to terminal tackle? Isn't there terminal tackle somewhere down here? Rods and reels? We don't need to do that. We're not doing that. I thought there was maybe a terminal section. Apparently not. We're done. Okay. What do you know? Yeah, the OSP. So, like I said, JDM companies knock each other off, and they knock off US baits, right? So I'm surprised that the swamp crawler doesn't come in other sizes. I mean, they make it in the Magnum swamp crawler, but it's a bigger bait. But it's called the Dolive crawler for a reason, right? Not just because it's like a night crawler, but because it's a super thin worm. They're not super durable, but they're great fished weightless or wacky rigged on a drop shot. They all have a very similar action to them. They get kind of snaky when you fish them fast or on a Texas rig, and they have a ton of action when fished on a wacky rig. They're also pretty good on a Nico rig. So if you like a crawler style bait, the Zoom Swamp Crawler is by far the best value, but JDM companies have gone that route in creating the same style presentation. So it's no surprise. Elizabeth says, to be honest, I stick with Zoom for 80% of my soft plastics. That's too much out there. I hear you. I mean, I throw a lot of Zoom. I've got boxes and boxes full of it. You know, there are a bunch of baits that were kind of originals, like the brush hog, maybe even the Z-craw, the trick worm, the finesse worm. I mean, what a rad color that is. Ghost herring trick worm? Come on. If you like Zoom, you need to shop at Land Big Fish to find their special run colors. The Ultra Vibe Speed Worm and the Ultra Vibe Speed Craw. Both in the regular and the Magnum, as well as some of their, curly tail worms, like the old Monster and the Mag 2. But yeah, Zoom makes great soft plastics all around. And I think if you could only go with one brand of soft plastics, Zoom or maybe Strike King would be good ones to go with, right? I'm with you right there. But yes, the Ultra Vibe Speedworm is the deal in Florida. I was just there 2 weeks ago. Caught a fish or two on the Magnum Ultra Vibe Speedworm, as well as a couple fish on the Turbo Fatties, which is from Z-Man. but also a swimming worm. So there's another knockoff, guys. A ton of companies have come out with swimming worms over the last 5 to 10 years. No surprise there. Yeah, that's not great, dude. Every single cast? That's absurd. I mean, was he catching fish on every cast or was the worm just coming off every cast? Sounds like he needed a little Nico hack made by Geekrack or something of the sort, or just an O-ring or something, a screw lock, whatever to preserve the life of those worms. That is crazy. Okay, Eliza, you're also mostly old school. I hear you. You definitely don't look it from that picture. Is that your daughter or is that you? Well, Matt, haters gonna hate, and right now you're a hater, right? There are tons of baits out there that are designed after other baits, especially when we look into hard baits, right? Poppers, walking baits, um, yeah, lipless crankbaits. Like you can look into any feature of a bait and realize that a company discovers, oh, that's what makes it unique. We need to do the same, but just barely tweak it so it doesn't look like a direct copycat. Um, it's all over the place. So let's quit our whining a little bit. Yo, you do not look 57. I'll say that. Good on you. I was just trying to look at your picture again. Oh, making me feel guilty. All right, guys. So what else do you want to talk about for a couple minutes before we dip out of here? We are coming up on the end here. We talked about the couple awards and just ran through the baits. And I'm on my third whiskey. I haven't made a huge dent in this bottle, but enough to where I should probably call it a night on the bourbon. There's that 6 Sense Divine swim bait head. This is weedless, but looks an awful lot like a couple that were released this year. Oh, can we hate on Brendan? He makes molds off of other companies' baits. That's true. Now, he would claim it's because he's not selling them, that he's not knocking them off, but oh, he's doing it. He's a copycat. Oh, he ain't selling them. That's what I said. Get him. Brendan is a copycat, and he's starting to drink the juice. That lemonade, that sauce. He went to iCAST, so he's getting sold by all the pros. If they tell him it's the best, he's probably going to buy it. The OG Tiny Deep, best at the show. I don't know about all that, but if Ott says it, it must be true. Now, all that said, I agree. There was not a lot of innovation this year. There's a lot of copying and twisting. There's a lot of new colors. There's a lot of new sink rates, new sizes. It's stuff we've already seen, just variations, if you will. So, how often can innovation come around? How often should it come around? I don't know. That's it's tricky to say. But I think we're all more impressed when it's something we've never seen before. And it just gives you that like aha or I wonder sort of feeling. And that was not the case this year. And it feels like it hasn't been the case for a couple of years. It feels like there's only been maybe a couple of baits per year, if that, out of the hundreds that are new that really make us think or are a little bit mind blowing. And so, yeah, I with that many more people on the internet putting their opinion out there, like Matt, perhaps, uh, just talking shiznit, I'm not surprised, right? Um, so we'll see when the next innovations come around. There will be more copying next year and the year after and the year after, right? If someone in Japan comes out with something unique and it does well, there will be more copying. If someone in America comes out with something unique and it does well, there will be more copying. It's the world we live in, but I don't know. Does that mean we should hate on copying? Maybe, maybe a little bit, right? Um, but I think these companies realize that there's an opportunity for grabbing a piece of that market share and knowing that people are going to spend their money on tackle no matter. And if they've got any bit of an allegiance to a company, or they could see a variation and think that is interesting, uh, that they're going to at least try it. So I think either patents aren't being issued or aren't being applied for one reason or another, right? It's probably just lack of actual innovation, lack of anything that stands out, that is truly unique, that is patentable. Patentable? Is that a word? I don't know. Um, Trying to get that money, aren't we all, Tim? Got to get that money. You started making your own underspins? Well, why don't you try selling them, Daniel? Plus, Megabass doesn't have a patent on an underspin. Let's be honest. Everybody's been creative about their own underspins for years. You know, for a while, we were using those Pro Point lures underspin blades that screw in on the bottom. And then every other company started making their own version of that or an underspin swim bait head. So, I mean, it's part of the deal. But do tell us, Daniel, what have you been creating? How have you been knocking off Megabass, if you will? No, Berkeley and now Rapala, especially. Um, I mean, maybe if we were to look at it from a macro aspect, maybe it's the fact that there are only a handful of companies that own the vast majority of the brands that are in the industry. Now, I think Rich and Brian were talking about this a little bit tonight, in that the awards are kind of rigged, right? Every year it feels like Berkeley or Live Target or whoever has the biggest showing in terms of number of people that show up to the event and are voters ends up winning the award. It's either a gimmick thing or just a sheer numbers deal, or what is potentially new to the US market. Um, I don't think they're paying money to win. Um, it's not like they're rigging it like that, but they're paying money in the way of like attendance. So yeah, pure fishing, rather outdoors. There's a number of like larger brands that own everything else. Is GSM one of them? I don't know, but yeah, there are parent companies that own, a bunch of companies underneath subsidiaries, and they're the ones controlling everything. So they're the ones probably making the decisions to copycat. They're the ones making the decisions of who votes on what and wins what, and therefore what sells the next year. So it's all rigged, but should we hate on it for that? I don't know. Maybe a little bit. If Berkeley baits didn't sell, you wouldn't miss them. All right. I mean, that's fair. Berkeley has a lot of money behind them. Pure Fishing is a monster of a machine. Power bait, Maxent, all the stuff. all the pro staff that they have with them, they are a machine for sure. So it is what it is. Doyo, yeah. I mean, as I said, I'm not huge into the reel and rod market, but yeah, goodness gracious, how many companies are using Doyo as a factory to create their reels? Um, that's a real thing. So, you know, Doyo is the winner in that instance. If you want to win an award, have Ike push it. Yeah, Mike Iaconelli is quite the force and salesman. Now, Pure Fishing has all of that we just talked about in the backing of uh, being a machine and having the science and the pro staff and the development team. And then, people like Ike who are able to create quote unquote their own products, even though somebody else has whispered in his ear, this is what we're going to create. This is how you're going to sell it. And we're going to put your name on it or create your own custom colors. And he's going to do his thing. Right. I mean, he's a salesman and a half. He doesn't even have to be winning tournaments anymore. He can be in and out of the industry and he'll still be raking for the rest of his life, right? Tim says, I've won 2 tournaments this year. In the last throwing a Fritz side. Tim's a Berkeley fan. I mean, I am too. I've got a bunch of Berkeley baits, a bunch of Rapala baits, a bunch of Strike King baits. They're all owned by different parent companies and are mega brands in themselves. So, yeah. My buddy Fritz needs his job. Hasn't been catching him too good lately. Yeah, well, that's the thing for a lot of pros these days is that, you know, uh, once you stop winning tournaments, you could sell baits. You could design baits. You can keep your career going by sponsorship. Ike has many strokes. What are you talking about? I think he has some sort of attention disorder, um, and high energy for sure, but many strokes. I don't know about that. All right, Daniel. Dare I check it right now and show everybody on stream, even though that's not what you wanted to have happen? Oh, interesting. Okay, I have seen this before. Lure Parts Online does make their own jig head. I don't know which came first. It's called the Slip Shad jig head. Oh, look what Daniel's making. Okay, so using that Tackle Junkie talks about that. What is that thing underneath? I forget who makes that, but yeah, you're making your own. And I've done the same thing for a while now in making my own cheaper Uoze swimmer. Instead of spending $11 on a swim jig, I'm spending $5, right? $6, $5 on a swim jig and $1 on the blade. And then guess what? If it's not getting bit, I take the blade off, or vice versa. So I'm with you on that. Picasso makes those dangly deals. Yeah, the Pit Boss. Like, why didn't they make a Max Scent Pit Boss? I don't quite understand that. You know, they made the Chigger Craw, but why not the Pit Boss? They just went from the Havoc to the Power Bait Pit Boss, but not the Maxent. Why not? I think everybody else has been a big fan of the Pit Boss for a while. And you know, it's kind of like a super legit beaver bait, but why not Maxent? I'm surprised that hasn't come out in the last couple of years. Berkeley Maxent Pit Boss. Now, we didn't cover the fact that Berkeley or a couple other companies knocked off the Whopper Plopper in creating the Chapo, right? There are probably 4 or 5 other companies that make a Whopper Plopper. That was a bait that for a few years was absolutely killer for me too. Frank says, I love lamp. Nice, dude. Oh, such a Frank thing to say, you know? What a comment that is. I'm just going to leave that pinned up here for a second. Oh, I love that. So Frank. Not Frank Doucette or Duchette or however you pronounce your last name, but my man. I mean that's Anchorman right there, but what's his name? Um Maxent Pit Boss. Why is it not out? Yeah, I hear you. I'm Ron Burgundy? No, it's not Ron. It's Steve Carell's character. Um all right, Frank. 4:30 or no, Elizabeth, got to get up at 4:30. That's quick. Take it easy. All right, guys, I'm going to dip out of here too. Super fun hanging out tonight. Thank you so much for joining in. If you haven't already, hit the thumbs up. I will be on likely tomorrow night again. I have a discount tackle package coming, and I'm not going to say any more, but there's not a lot in it, but it should be cool baits. All right. So, Daniel, I'm going to need you here tomorrow night if you're available. If not, no big deal. I can always drop the links. Brick, Frank, you're right. It is Brick from Anchorman. I love lamp. I'm Ron Burgundy. I love lamp. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Frank, have a great rest of your night at work. Guys, cheers. I'm going to finish this right now. You have a great rest of your night. Happy iCAST. Happy July. Even though I'll probably see you tomorrow night on the 14th of July. Cheers. Thanks for hanging out.